Your brain can store the equivalent of 2.5 million gigabytes of information, generate enough electricity to light a small bulb, and even rewire itself when it needs to adapt. It also is home to billions of neurons, and despite weighing only about 3 pounds, burns through 20% of your body's energy every day. I'm about to let you in on a few secrets, but before we dig in, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Really helps us bring you content like this. You ready? Because I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 secrets of the human brain. 25. Your brain eats a fifth of everything you consume. For something that makes up only about 2% of your body weight, your brain is an absolute energy hog. It burns through roughly 20% of everything you eat, and most of that power goes into sending and receiving electrical signals across its circuits. Gray matter, where most of the processing happens, uses more energy than white matter. And certain jobs, like processing sound, demand even more because they require lightning-fast precision. The surprising part is that this high energy use doesn't stop when you're resting or even sleeping. Thanks to something known as glutamate signaling, which works like the brain's group chat, your neurons are still swapping information to help you learn, store memories, and control your body's systems, even if you're sleeping like a baby. 24. Your brain is squishier than you think. If you could touch your brain, it wouldn't feel solid at all. The closest comparisons are soft tofu or room temperature butter. It's firm enough to hold its shape, yet soft enough to dent or deform with very little pressure. That delicate texture is mostly thanks to water, which makes up about 73% of the brain. It helps your brain cells communicate, remove waste, and delivers nutrients where they're needed. So when someone tells you to stay hydrated, take it seriously. Even mild dehydration can hurt performance. A 2% drop in brain hydration can mess with your short-term memory, and at just 1% down, your decision-making starts to slip. Over time, dehydration can even shrink the brain cells you have, leading to fatigue, poor sleep, and mental fog. 23. Your brain is faster than a Formula One car. Yep. When it's firing at top speed, your brain can process information at up to 268 miles an hour. At its slowest, it moves at around 1 mile per hour, or about the pace of a casual stroll. That is a huge range, and that speed is actually important because it determines how quickly you can respond to the world around you. Strong neural connections, healthy pathways, and balanced neurotransmitters like dopamine keep the system running at its best. The odd bit of exercise helps too, and not only the physical kind. So to maintain peak brain power, give it a workout inside and out. Physical exercise to get the blood flowing, and mental exercises like puzzles or learning new skills to keep the pathways sharp and ready to go. 22. Neurons are the immortals of the cell world. Most of the cells in your body live fast, die, and get replaced, but neurons play by a different set of rules. The process of making new ones mostly happens before you're born, then slows to a crawl, but never fully stops. Your hippocampus, the brain's learning and memory hub, keeps producing new neurons even at old age. So you might think that means they can repair themselves, but for the most part, damaged neurons are gone for good. The upside is that the ones you have can stick around for life and adapt when needed. If certain pathways are damaged, your brain can reroute signals through others. That adaptability, called neuroplasticity, is why kids pick up on new languages so easily. 21. The strange brain cell that shows up in whales and elephants too. You have one very strange neuron in your brain, the von Economo neuron. It's unusually large, easy to spot under a microscope, and not something you'll find in every animal. In fact, it only shows up in bigger-brained or highly social species like great apes, whales, dolphins, elephants, and even cows. Scientists believe that it might have evolved independently in animals that rely on complex thinking or deep social bonds. What makes it even stranger is that it's completely absent in most of the animals we study in labs, like rats and mice. It's also missing in people with certain brain diseases, while superagers, older adults with unusually sharp memories, tend to have more of them. We don't know exactly what this neuron does, but it's rare enough that future research will almost certainly focus on it. 20. Your thoughts come from billions of tiny conversations. There are over 86 billion neurons in your brain. Not millions, billions. And each one of those fires off tiny electrical signals to thousands of others, passing along bits of information that range from the taste of your coffee to the memory of your first day at school. These signals move in patterns, combining and splitting so quickly that your brain can turn them into thoughts, memories, decisions, and reactions almost instantly. As opposed to one big speech, it's more like a non-stop exchange of short, rapid-fire messages. At any given moment, thousands of these conversations are happening all at once, and they all have to be coordinated so you can focus, move, or just keep breathing without thinking about it. Think of it like an airport with 86 billion gates, each gate having as many as 10,000 flights leaving, all bound for other gates in the same airport, and you'll get the idea. 19. Your brain runs hot. And I mean that in the most literal way. Research shows you can reach around 104 degrees Fahrenheit compared to your body's usual 98.6. That's not a sign that something's wrong, though. In fact, it's normal and healthy. But unusual heat patterns can point to brain damage or certain disorders. Now, for the interesting part. Detailed 4D brain maps have shown that female brains tend to run a little warmer than male brains, possibly because of their hormonal cycles. Temperature also shifts throughout the day, with cooler readings at night and warmer ones during the day. Your brain's outer areas are also generally cooler than its inner parts, and older adults' brains tend to be hotter than younger ones. 18. It's like packing 400 miles in a cantaloupe. Your brain's energy needs are incredible, so its blood vessels work around the clock. They bring in oxygen, glucose, and other nutrients while carrying away waste so the whole system keeps running smoothly. The blood-brain barrier plays a critical role when it comes to these processes, deciding what can pass from your blood into your brain and what gets turned away. Different areas of the brain need different flow rates and pressures, so this network has to run with perfect timing. Add it all together, and you have a dense web of capillaries that reaches every corner of your brain. If you could stretch them out in a straight line, they would cover about 400 miles, which is roughly the distance from New York City to Pittsburgh, all packed into something the size of a cantaloupe. 17. Psilocybin and new brain pathways. What if the key to new brain pathways came from a mushroom? Scientists think it just might. Psilocybin, the compound that gives magic mushrooms their kick, is now being studied as a potential breakthrough treatment for depression that refuses to improve with standard medication. Once your body turns psilocybin into psilocin, it gets to work in the brain. And the list of possible benefits covers everything from easing anxiety and PTSD to helping with addiction, obsessive thoughts, and even cluster headaches. In people with depression, it seems to break the loop of constant self-criticism and fear, giving the brain room to think differently. Scientists believe it may also encourage neurons to grow new branches called dendrites, which helps brain cells communicate. More connections mean new circuits, and that could help people climb out of mental ruts. It's not a magic fix for everyone, but so far, the results have been very promising. 16. The electrical output. Every time you recall the lyrics to your favorite song or work out a tip in your head, your neurons send electrical signals to each other. On their own, each neuron produces very little energy, but working together, they can generate between 12 and 20 watts. That's not enough to power your phone or computer, but it is enough to power a small light bulb. Who knew, right? Okay, maybe the guys who came up with the cartoon light bulb idea knew that, but whatever. And your brain can still pull off tasks that most of the AI tools can't. At least for now. The harder your brain works, the more electricity it produces, and that also means more heat. For some, more than others. 15. Your brain's most important upgrade comes in your 20s. Most of your brain finishes developing long before you reach adulthood, but the prefrontal cortex takes its time. That's the part responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and handling complex tasks. It usually wraps up its structural development in your mid-20s. Before that, the brain is still strengthening important neural connections through a process called myelination and trimming away the ones you don't use in what is known as synaptic pruning. The slow, careful build is why teens and young adults are usually more impulsive or take bigger risks. By the time the prefrontal cortex is fully wired, you have better control over your choices, a stronger sense of judgment, and the ability to plan for the long term. 14. You miss more than you notice. Right now, you might think you're seeing everything around you, but your brain is suppressing or dumping more than half of it. There's simply too much coming in. So it sorts through the flood of sights, sounds, and sensations, keeps what matters, and throws away the rest. Neuroscientists call this mental tunnel vision, and it's the only reason you can follow a chat in a loud restaurant or keep your eye on the ball without noticing the hot dog guy waving in the stands. It even helps you stay sane in traffic. I mean, imagine if your brain forced you to register every billboard, every license plate, and the exact shade of paint on every passing car. You would lose it. Studying how this works might help scientists figure out how we make choices and could even teach machines to focus in the same way. 13. Studying the brain without the body. One of the biggest challenges in brain research is figuring out how it works without the rest of the body influencing it. Researchers at the University of Texas's Southwestern Medical Center may have cracked part of that problem. They built a system that can keep a pig's brain alive outside of its body by pumping it with a carefully monitored blood supply. An algorithm monitors pressure, flow, and other key factors, adjusting the supply in the same way the body would. So far, they've managed to keep an isolated pig brain active for 5 hours with very little change in its function. Because human testing is off the table, studies like this could be the only way to uncover what the brain does when left entirely to itself. 12. Psychedelics to heal the brain. When soldiers come home, not every scar is visible. PTSD and brain injuries can be just as destructive, and getting the right treatment isn't always easy. I already mentioned how psilocybin mushrooms can build new pathways in the brain, and now, even more recently, Stanford researchers have started looking into ibogaine, a powerful compound from the root bark of an African shrub. In one 2025 study, 30 veterans spent 5 days at a treatment center in Mexico with therapy, yoga, meditation, and ibogaine sessions. The numbers were hard to ignore. They experienced an average 81% drop in PTSD, depression, and anxiety, with 83% no longer meeting the criteria for any of those conditions. Texas has even put $50 million into more trials in the hopes that this kind of treatment might become a regular option. It just might become the turning point for a lot of people carrying unseen wounds. 11. It comes with a lot of fat. Your brain isn't just a thinker. It's also the fattest organ in your body, with over 60% of it made of fat. The good news is, it's the right kind. Omega-3s like EPA and DHA help build your brain's cell walls and keep the signals moving between neurons. That's why everyone keeps telling you to eat more fish. When your diet is loaded with these healthy fats, your brain works better. Memory is sharper, focus comes easier, and your brain cells are better protected as you get older. If you don't eat enough, things can slow down and your mood can take a hit. It's basically your brain's fuel. So if you want to keep it firing on all cylinders, give it what it's made of. 10. The wonders of deep brain stimulation. A few years ago, the idea of a brain implant would have sent most of us running for the hills. And to be fair, the idea is still pretty intimidating. But a new implant is showing just how far this technology can go. The device sends precise electrical pulses into targeted brain regions, interrupting harmful patterns and restoring healthier ones. During the first trials, doctors used the technology to treat OCD and epilepsy. Separately, of course. But more recently, both conditions have been tackled together in the same brain. One of the first patients, Amber Pearson, went from spending up to 9 hours a day on compulsive rituals to just half an hour, while her seizures completely disappeared. It's given scientists the rare opportunity to see how different disorders might be connected in the brain and how switching off one circuit could help another. 9. Multitasking is impossible. Your brain actually can't do two thinking tasks at the same time. What it's really doing is context switching, jumping from one thing to another, and you're paying a hidden tax every time it swaps. Research shows that our error rates can spike by 50%, and each job can take twice as long. In some cases, it can actually take more than 20 minutes just to get your attention back and refocus on the original task. And it's not just immediate things that get influenced. For example, one study even found that chronic multitaskers tend to perform worse when it comes to filtering out irrelevant information and managing working memory. And most people in that particular study thought they were doing just fine. That's the dangerous part. Your brain can trick you into believing you're more productive while you're actually slowing down. 8. Your short-term memory is short. Short-term memory is basically your brain's sketch pad. It keeps a few pieces of info handy while you use them, then clears the slate. The catch is that the slate only lasts about 20 to 30 seconds. Most people can hang on to a string of numbers for about 7 seconds and a set of letters for about 9. For instance, most of us can juggle roughly 7 digits in working memory at once, which is exactly why phone numbers in the US are 7 digits long. If you need to keep something longer than half a minute, your brain has to work to transfer it into long-term storage. That's where repetition, association, or chunking comes in. Without that, the details disappear. Not because you weren't paying attention, but because your brain freed up space for whatever's coming next. 7. ADHD has a signature. Scientists have studied the brains of 6,000 children and noticed that certain brain regions behave differently in kids with ADHD symptoms compared to those without. These differences showed up most clearly in networks that are usually busy when the brain is at rest, along with the cingulate opercular network, which plays a big role in attention and cognitive control. Spotting these patterns could make it easier to identify ADHD earlier, which can be life-changing for patients and their families, since delays in diagnosis come at a cost. One study found that adults diagnosed only in adulthood were up to 4 times more likely to die early than their peers. So the hope is that brain scans like these could be part of routine screenings in the near future. 6. We're almost at the point where we can zap away bad memories. Did you ever see that movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Well, we're closer than ever to deleting bad memories, and Boston University neuroscientist Steve Ramirez is leading the charge. His team has already shown that it's possible to locate and activate a single memory in a mouse's brain, even creating false ones by pairing safe memories with unpleasant shocks. The process hinges on how memories get rewritten every time we recall them. It's like hitting save as on a file. In theory, that means a traumatic memory could be updated into something harmless. And I should mention that the goal isn't Hollywood-style mind wipes, but helping people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and even PTSD by reshaping or softening harmful recollections. Ramirez's latest work even suggests he can predict where a memory will form days in advance, potentially letting doctors intervene before the actual damage occurs. 5. Human twins could be carrying each other's brain cells. Scientists recently found out that marmoset twins not only share a womb, they also swap out brain cells. Harvard researchers studying these small primates found signs of chimerism, where DNA from one individual ends up in the other. It happens because twin mammals share a blood supply in the womb, allowing stem cells to cross between them. In marmosets, as much as 80% of their blood cells can actually come from their twin. And since chimerism occurs in humans too, it's entirely possible that some identical or fraternal twins are walking around with small populations of each other's brain cells, shaping each other's neural landscapes and lives long after birth. 4. We've created AI made from human brain cells. And so far, its biggest achievement is in speech recognition. I know, it sounds crazy, but it learned to identify one voice from listening to audio clips of 8 different people. Even more impressive, it doubled its accuracy after just 2 days of training, showing signs of adaptive learning without constant human input. The system is built from tiny brain organoids, or clusters of nerve cells just a few millimeters wide, and was grown over several months until they contained up to 100 million neurons. These organoids were then placed on a microelectrode array, allowing researchers to train and measure their activity. The team says it's still in its early days, but BrainAware could one day merge neuroscience and AI in ways we've never seen before. 3. Your brain can store 2.5 million gigabytes. Have you ever wondered if there's an actual limit to how much your brain can hold? Well, the answer is yes. But don't worry, it is a lot. Scientists estimate the human's brain storage capacity at around 2.5 petabytes. That's roughly 2.5 million gigabytes, or about 3 million hours of TV. So theoretically, you could store every episode of Friends, plus the entire Marvel and Star Wars franchises, and still have room left over. Our biggest challenge isn't storing all that info, it's finding it again. We can only focus intently for about 20 minutes at a stretch, which makes recall the real bottleneck. 2. Your brain loves surprises. MRI scans show that our brains are wired to get extra pleasure from the unexpected. When something surprises us, and it's a good surprise, it triggers a rush of dopamine that lights up the nucleus accumbens, also known as the brain's pleasure center. One psychiatry professor at Emory University puts it this way: birthday gifts are great, but a present on a random Tuesday? A million times better. The element of surprise makes the reward feel bigger, giving our brain that extra chemical boost and leaving us grinning for hours afterward. So yes, no matter what people say, surprises make our brains light up like Christmas trees, and a little unpredictability might just be one of the fastest ways to make us happy. 1. Dread versus delight. Now this probably goes without saying, but as much as your brain loves a good surprise, it really hates a scary one. Those same MRI scans show that horror movies light up the brain in very different ways depending on the kind of scare. Slow building horror taps into a completely different network than sudden jump scares. When tension starts to creep in, the areas that handle visual and auditory processing go into overdrive, scanning for clues. As that dread builds, the regions linked to emotions, threat evaluation, and decision making kick in, getting you ready to act. Jump scares, on the other hand, trigger those same fear processing areas almost immediately, forcing a fast reaction. The worst of all the horror genres, though, at least according to science, is psychological horror. The scans show that everyone who watched these movies had their brains in hyper-aware mode, looking for non-existent danger for hours after the movie ended. Which is probably exactly why I hate horror movies. And that's all I have for you today. But before you head out, see what I did there? Let's see if you were paying attention. How hot can the human brain actually get? Is it A, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, B, 102, C, 104, or D, 106 degrees? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, tell me which of these brain secrets you like the most. And if you liked today's video, well, you'll love another one we did in actually the same vein. 25 things you didn't know will kill you. In case you were wondering, sneezing can definitely kill you, not to mention iPhone chargers or doing the laundry. If you'd like to know more, that link should pop up right about here any second. Thank you guys so much, and as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Adios.